Thank you for tuning in to Local News Live, your daily community service brought to you by AOC Community Media with our partners, The Advocate. And we are fortunate this morning to be joined by our volunteer newsreader, Bruce Cohen. Bruce, how are you this morning, buddy?
Well, I am alive.
That is excellent.
And breathing and awaiting another what seems to be shaping up for another beautiful day in our area of Acadiana.
It sure is. Some nice temperature, some beautiful sunshine, and I'm going to walk around the garden listening to the news on Cypress Street as you deliver it with your dulcet tones.
Well, thank you so much for that wonderful intro. Thank you, Matt. Well, a very good morning to you, Acadiana. And of course, we will start off with coronavirus. Most of the news these days are COVID-19 related, but we'll start off with the numbers in our Acadiana area region. So we're known as Region 4 in the state. So let me talk to you about our virus cases, and there's been one death recently. So 31,600 people in the state have tested positive for COVID-19. The story is by Megan Wyatt. There were an additional 4 confirmed coronavirus cases in Acadiana reported in the Louisiana Department of Health's update at noon as of yesterday, Sunday, Mother's Day, bringing the area's total known cases to 1,514. One more COVID-19 related death was reported in the daily update, bringing the region's total to 133. Statewide, the virus claimed an additional 19 lives, bringing the death total to 2,213. An additional 183 confirmed cases bring Louisiana's total number of known coronavirus cases to 31,600. Across Louisiana, 1,324 patients were hospitalized as a result of the coronavirus, including 161 people on ventilators. Here's a breakdown of cases and death by parish in the Acadiana area as defined by the Louisiana Department of Health's Region 4. Lafayette, 501 cases, up 3, 22 deaths, no changes. Iberia Parish, 285, no change, 26 deaths, no change. St. Martin, 257 cases, no change, 21 deaths, no change. St. Landry, 215 cases, up 4, 50 deaths, up 1. Acadia, 148 cases, down 3, 11 deaths, no change. Evangeline, 67 cases, no change, 1 death, no change. Vermilion, 41 cases, no change, 2 deaths, no change. It was not immediately clear why the number of cases in Acadia Parish dropped between the state's Saturday and Sunday updates. Public health officials have attributed similar situations to removals of duplicated cases or cases being reassigned from the parish where a test was taken to the parish of residence. The Louisiana Department of Health provides updated numbers every day at noon. Continuing with coronavirus, the COVID-19 news, Edwards facing mounting pressure from GOP, the governor to announce decision on reopening, by Sam Carlin. 2 weeks ago, Governor John Bel Edwards made the surprise announcement that he was extending his stay-at-home order until mid-May, siding with the public health experts who warned the virus was still too rampant in parts of the state to begin reopening safely. On Monday, today, he'll announce the results of that high-stakes process once again, deciding whether the state will enter phase 1 of loosened restrictions and allow barbershops, salons, and dine-in restaurants to reopen at a fraction of their normal capacity. The decision is not only colored by an economic crisis that has put historic levels of Louisiana workers on the unemployment rolls, but also public health realities that have caused the state to be hit harder by the virus than almost anywhere else in the U.S. Louisiana has among the highest rates of cases and deaths per capita, and Black communities have been hit particularly hard as have the state's nursing homes and other congregate settings. While there is still a lot of COVID in Louisiana, Edwards stated, the state has made strides to flatten the curve and boost testing and contact tracing. We are in a much better place, quite frankly, today than I thought we would be possible a month ago, he said. The state has started receiving much needed test kits from the federal government and will have in place the first batch of 250 contact tracers at call centers by May 15th, Edwards said. But he cautioned people that the virus is not going away and, in fact, will make a resurgence when the reopening starts in earnest. This means the state's residents need to wear masks, stay 6 feet away from strangers, wash their hands, and do other things recommended by public health experts to slow the spread. There is a new normal, so we want to make sure we prepare people for that, he said on Friday. Edwards, a Democrat, is no longer benefiting from a bipartisan front offered up by Republican leaders ahead of his previous announcements. Infuriated by the extension of the stay-at-home order until May 15th, and what they see is a lack of communication from the governor's office, GOP state lawmakers are calling for the governor to reopen the state regardless of whether his health experts agree. Republican Party leaders, including all of Louisiana's GOP congressmen, are calling for a parish-by-parish reopening of the state. Some more conservative members of the State House had a protest at the governor's mansions recently, demanding an unfettered lifting of restrictions. The animosity is transformed into legislation to undermine Edwards' stay-at-home order, which shutters bars, casinos, gyms, and a host of other businesses, limits gatherings to 10 or fewer, and restricts restaurants to takeout, delivery, or drive-through service. Representative Blake Miguez, the chairman of the House GOP delegation, successfully ushered a resolution through the House of Governmental Affairs Committee last week after a tense 5-hour hearing on whether the legislature should take the teeth out of Edwards' order. The resolution would end the governor's ability to enforce his order and urge and request local officials to adopt White House guidance for reopening. House Speaker Clay Schnecksider, a Republican who won the scholar speakership with help from Edwards in the House Democratic Caucus, said that resolution will loom over Edwards' decision. The resolution is a tool that we have that we're definitely going to move on, Schnecksider said during a teleconference with the Baton Rouge area chamber on Friday. I think it's something we need to hang on to just in case. We're going to have that resolution on the floor come Wednesday. The Speaker and other Republicans have indicated that resolution won't be necessary if Edwards starts reopening May 16th. Schnecksider also acknowledged that Edwards is looking at this by the numbers, but Schnecksider and Senate President Paige Cortez, also a Republican, were upset that Edwards extended the order last time after indicating to them that he would start the reopening May 1st. The two learned shortly before the announcement that he was extending the restrictions, though he allowed restaurants to let patrons sit on outdoor patios and malls to offer curbside service. I think the governor, if the communication lines wouldn't have been broken down last time, I don't think any of that would have come into play, Schnecksider said, of the resolution to kneecap his executive order. Edwards' administration has blasted the resolution to undermine his stay-at-home order, and the governor is following White House guidelines. President Donald Trump has repeatedly praised Edwards' handling of the pandemic, and Edwards recently went to Washington to meet with Trump at the White House. The governor's office has not released updated data used to decide whether the state has met the thresholds laid out by the White House for beginning phase one. That criteria calls for a 14-day decline in new cases, people with COVID-19-like symptoms, and hospitalizations. In late April, Louisiana statewide was seeing decreases of all three, but several regions were experiencing increases. Public Affairs Research Council, a Baton Rouge think tank, released its own analysis of whether the state and various regions were meeting those criteria on Friday. Though the state health department was not releasing enough data to replicate all three. PAR wrote in an analysis that as of May 7th, Louisiana overall is moving in the right direction with hospitalizations, but that the state overall is on a plateau for new cases. Plus, some regions are increasing in new cases per capita, depending on how long the time period is analyzed. On the other hand, the state in recent days has ramped up its testing to relatively high levels. Epidemiologists and health experts say testing is crucial to the reopening. The state must be able to quickly identify new cases and dispatch contact tracers to track down those people infected that come into contact with. Testing has also risen dramatically, and the percentage of results coming back positive have dropped, a promising sign. Officials have said they need at least 140,000 tests a month to begin reopening, but the federal government recently promised to provide equipment for 200,000 a month. And Edwards announced Friday that he had signed deals for 250 contract tracers, call center workers who will track down people who come in contact with those who test positive and urge them to isolate or quarantine. Dr. Alex Billio, Assistant Secretary for the state's Office of Public Health, said both testing and contact tracing will be crucial to the reopening. The state will use the resources to take people who have been exposed to the virus out of public settings before they begin spreading it. People can become contagious 48 hours before showing symptoms, another reason officials have urged for people to wear a mask. As we move into looking at the next phases and considering relaxation of the stay-at-home order, it's more crucial than ever that we have the ability to comprehensively interview every case that's detected and identify the people who could have come into contact with those individuals, Billio said. All right. I'm turning back to our local news. Best day ever. Lafayette family finalizes adoption. Loved ones cheer as courthouse via Zoom call by Megan White. London Dugas declared May 5th the best day ever. The 6-year-old girl wasn't celebrating Cinco de Mayo. Instead, she woke up to a wiggly tooth that eventually broke free from her gums. London couldn't wait for a visit from the tooth fairy later that night, but first she had to put on her mask for a visit to the Lafayette Parish Courthouse. That was the day London's foster parents would officially become mom and dad to her and a 3-year-old sister, Paris. It just felt natural, said Melissa Dugas, who's fostered the girls for a year before officially adopting them on Tuesday. It just felt like we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Theirs was one of 4 adoption proceedings last week at the Lafayette Courthouse, and the first in Louisiana since mid-March, when Governor John Bel Edwards closed courtrooms to non-emergency proceedings because of the novel coronavirus. 2 of the 4 adoptions happened remotely via video conference. The other 2, including the Dugas families, happened at the courthouse, where a Zoom call allowed loved ones to witness the ceremony. So many times we'll have adoptions where I'll have 50 people coming in wearing shirts that might say Baby Dugas, something like that, said Judge Thomas Duplantier, who led the 4 adoption proceedings. It was a little hard telling them that they couldn't have their family here. About a dozen people watched the Dugas proceeding via live video, including the state caseworkers assigned to London and Paris, as well as family members. Melissa Dugas' mom, Gail Guthrie, was one of them. Yes. It was just so exciting to be able to see it, Guthrie said. It was like we were there, and it just made us feel closer. For the child, I prayed for many years, and they weren't blessed with just one. They were blessed with 2 children. London and Paris pressed their tiny fingers against the computer screen to interact with their grandmother and others on the video call before the ceremony. After the adoption was finalized, Melissa and David Dugas added a 3rd female to the family, a Schnauzer puppy named Sarah. They've been planning to add a furry friend to their family for weeks, but they didn't initially plan for both adoptions to happen on the same day. The court case was scheduled for April, and their puppy was going to be ready on May 6th. When the family realized their adoption was rescheduled for May 6th. When the family realized their adoption was rescheduled for May 5th, the day before the puppy's adoption date, they asked if they could bring Sarah home a day early to commemorate the occasion. When asked if she had a good day, Paris squealed, "Yeah," before imitating the sound an elephant makes. The girl who celebrated her third birthday 2 days before she was adopted had remembered the huge stuffed elephant in the courtroom. Happy is a word Paris used to describe the day. Duplantier had purchased a stuffed animal and a balloon to celebrate the state's first adoption proceedings in nearly 2 months. "It's not something I do every day," Duplantier said. "I was just trying to make it as normal and as fun as it could be in the world we're in." Even the elephant wore a face mask for the occasion. Duplantier, who handles child welfare cases for Lafayette and familiar parishes, asked his colleagues if they would mind him rescheduling proceedings from mid-March through May that had been postponed due to COVID-19 restrictions. The courthouse isn't officially reopened, but Duplantier said these could be considered emergency proceedings. The other judges welcomed his proposal, as did the governor's office. 4 more adoption proceedings are scheduled to happen this week at the Lafayette courthouse. Many of these cases can last 2 years, Duplantier said. "These families are so anxious and ready. Even when we terminate a parental right, it can take 6 to 8 months for the adoption to be finalized. The kids are with them at least, but many of them change their surnames." I think all 4 of the ones we did were very grateful and overwhelmed for the opportunity. Melissa and David Dugas have dreamed of having children to call their own for more than a decade. They hope to have biological children and perhaps later adopt through foster care, but after years of trying, they never became pregnant. "Even when I was a kid, I had always thought about adopting," Melissa Dugas said, "but I wanted to have my kids first and then like to adopt another one later. It always seemed like a good thing to do kind of thing, but you just never know your journey." She became emotional during the adoption, and her husband became emotional the following day as he talked about what it means to him to give these children a loving, stable home. David Dugas's mother and her siblings spent time in foster care as children after the mother was institutionalized for postpartum depression in the late 1960s. Although David Dugas said his mom and uncle were cared for in decent homes, their other siblings weren't as lucky. It's something his mom didn't talk about openly. She died in 2010, so she didn't get the chance to watch her son become a father. David Dugas recently reconnected with his uncle, who went through foster care alongside his mother, and he's been supporting other families' foster to adopt journey. "My uncle was just through the roof excited about us adopting the kids," David Dugas said. He told me my mom would be over the moon excited for us too. We knew it would have meant a lot to her. And my uncle said he's very proud of me, having gone through the same thing. His uncle had also helped the elder of the Dugas children understand what's happening. London had been able to talk to his uncle about it, Melissa Dugas said. He was in foster care, and he's been someone she can relate to, a caring adult who understands what she's going through. Duplantier said he's starting to see more child welfare cases again after a noticeable dip in reports last month. "We're just now catching up on some of the domestic violence situations. The substance abuse exposed newborns," the judge said. "The biggest concern we have in this child welfare world is that kids are not in school and they're not being seen on a daily basis by a third-party person. Now, the mandated reporters are the hospitals and the police, and we're also relying on neighbors and relatives and others to report the neglect and the issues that are going on." Duplantier said they aren't seeing more or less of these cases right now, but there's a fear that cases will increase as COVID-19 restrictions ease up and people start leaving their homes in the coming weeks and months. That's one reason facilitating adoptions was a priority for Duplantier. Although cases are shared among judges, Duplantier is the one who handled London and Paris's case, ultimately terminating rights of the girls' birth parents in his courtroom months before the adoption was finalized. "The Dugases were a little special for me," Duplantier said. "The girls were just adorable. They went up to the computer, I saw the relatives on the screen, and talk to them before we had the ceremony and all of that. A few hours earlier, little London showed her foster parents a wiggly tooth. It was kind of like sticking out right there, London said as she poked her tongue through a hole in the bottom row of the teeth. And I pulled it out and I said, "Here it is." The next morning, she eagerly showed mom and dad money left behind by the tooth fairy. London aided the $1 bill to 6 others in her Velcro wallet. She's not sure what she'll buy with the cash, but she knows how much she wants. "I'm going to buy some stuff," London said. "I'm going to save it and try to get a lot." All right, folks, let's turn to our first public service announcements for the morning. AOC teams up with the United Way of Acadiana for Learn United. The United Way of Acadiana has teamed up with AOC and other local educational groups for Learn United, bringing the digital gap to provide educational resources for households that don't have internet but do have a television. The Learn United program airs weekdays from 8 to 2 on AOC 2, Cox 16, LUS 4, and streaming at aocinc.org/watch. For the daily schedules and to submit content for the program, visit the United Way of Acadiana's website. That's unitedwayofacadiana.org/learn-united. And locally, there is, and nationally, there's a Keeping Calm Through COVID hotline. If you're feeling overwhelmed with stress, fear, and anxiety about the uncertainty surrounding a public health emergency, there is a special Keeping Calm Through COVID hotline you can call. This connects you to trained, compassionate counselors who can offer support and can direct you to mental health and substance abuse counseling services. Trained counselors available 24/7. All calls are confidential. So please call 1-866-310-7977. That's 866-310-7977 for Keeping Calm Through the COVID hotline. And Medicaid, if you have lost your job or if you have reduced hours, you may be eligible for Medicaid. You can apply online at mymedicaid.la.gov. You can also apply by phone by calling 888-342-6207 or by mail by sending information to Louisiana Medicaid P.O. Box 91283 Baton Rouge, LA 70821. Local Medicaid offices are currently closed to the public, so additional information assistance is needed. If it's needed, you can call again 888-342-6207. And looking locally, Stop the Spread, call instead. For the latest COVID-19 updates and information locally, you can visit www.311lafayette.services. Call centers with volunteers and medical professionals are active 24/7 to answer your questions about COVID-19 and determine if you need to get screened. You may also call 311 and press option 2 if you are a business owner or employee or looking for a job to get information about applying for small business recovery loans, apply for unemployment benefits, and related programs. So looking back at our news for the day, for 4 UL graduates face altered career paths amid a world shadowed by COVID-19. Articles entitled Degree of Doubt by Adam Daigle, Acadiana business editor. Gina Campbell was set to finish her last semester of graduate school at the University of Louisiana in Lafayette the way she started, hyper-focused on finishing. At 30 years old and with a 4-year-old daughter, Sophia, the Lafayette native worked hard enough to finish her Master of Business Administration degree with a concentration in finance and be named Outstanding Master's Graduate at the Moody College of Business this spring. But thanks to an economy that's slumped due to the COVID-19 pandemic, none of those credentials have translated into employment. As unemployment in Louisiana and across the country soars, graduates like Campbell, who are set to enter the workforce, face a discouraging job search. Grad school all fell into place at Campbell, who worked part-time at UL while her daughter was in daycare there. UL has a great daycare. It really worked out. I was able to get started, classes right away, and get finished as quickly as possible. Everything was going good until this last semester. Spring graduates face a sobering professional reality, said Gary Wagner, Acadiana business economist at UL. Present state, just under 20% of the pre-pandemic workforce in Acadiana is now out of work is bad enough, but this spring's graduates will likely get dinged throughout their professional lives. Dinged, I should say. Dinged. Research has shown they will likely earn less than those entering the labor force when the economy is not slumping. It's likely their lifetime earnings will be scarred by this, he said. It's very bad. The coronavirus has altered career paths for several graduates, including 4 who spoke with a Acadian advocate for this story. The economy has made some pursue grad school or just keep plugging away at job opportunities. Just being in the labor force and building some work history is important, Wagner said. The longer you stay out of the labor force, study has shown how worse that is for your career. People may have to consider relocating too. UL will hold a virtual spring commencement at 10 a.m. this coming Friday. A charter pushes ahead with expansion. Acadiana Renaissance slates high school opening for August by Katie Gagliano. Administrators at the Acadiana Renaissance Charter Academy are charged ahead with plans to open a high school branch in August, undeterred by uncertainty surrounding the structure of the new school year and the novel coronavirus pandemic. The charter school group in Youngsville broke ground on an $8.7 million addition in January. The 40,000 square foot building, the first phase of an eventual 6th through 12th grade campus, will have 14 classrooms, a multi-purpose space, office spaces, and a small gym and recreational space. Joshua Levine, Charter Schools USA Facility Support Regional Manager, said in January. The school will later add a 600-seat high school building. The charter program will launch its high school with a 9th grade class in August, which will be housed in the new building, while the high school quarters are under construction. Lyndall Theriault, principal for the upper school, said despite the coronavirus disruptions, the team is on track to begin to open in August. Administrators and teachers have shifted meetings to teleconferencing platforms like Zoom, and Theriault is completing the final round of faculty hires using the platform this week, she said. They similarly use the platform in Google Classroom to fit incoming freshmen with their class schedule after in-person parent meetings were canceled because of the pandemic. Theriault, a former high school principal from Vermilion Parish, said she and the other team members aren't letting the virus stop them from developing a positive academic and social environment for the incoming freshmen. The principal is building out the school's policies and adapting best practices from the K-8 program for a high school environment, she said. The school leader said she's focused on building a strong foundation of elective courses and extracurriculars, and the rest will be built out over time. Theriault said she's passionate about ensuring a positive school culture from the outset. I want us to have an environment for these students where they can grow and be nurtured. We have to help these kids learn to be adults. In order to do that, you're going to make mistakes, and you need an environment that allows you to learn from your mistakes so that kids will take risks and have confidence enough to try new things and figure things out for themselves, the principal said. Theriault, whose selection was announced in January, was on campus for a month to 6 weeks when the novel coronavirus pandemic forced schools to physically close. School leaders said she's hopeful schools will reopen in the fall. I think it would be really hard to start a new school year when you can't see everybody face to face, but if that's what we have to do, then that's what we'll do, and we'll make the best of it, she said. Theriault is preparing for a virtual launch if public health necessitates a distance fall semester. The K-8 classes have continued distance learn lessons virtually this semester, and they're tracking best practices to use in the high school. Administrators are also offering professional development opportunities on topics such as classroom management in a virtual setting, platforms to keep students engaged online, and assessing students' knowledge gaps to prepare, she said. The high school will operate on a one-on-one plan led the K through 8 campus, with each student provided with a Chromebook for assignments, and administrators will assess each child's home internet access and make arrangements on a case-by-case basis, Terrio said. No matter the level of preparation, there are some struggles educators at all institutions will face in the fall for the first time. Adding to virtual learning with a new group of students is one example, she said. Right now, the teachers know their kids. They know who to watch for. They know which ones are going to struggle before they even start a lesson. But if you're starting out brand new and you're trying to learn your students, that's a really hard way to learn students, Terrio said. Lafayette Charter Foundation President Mary Luella Riggs Cook says she's most concerned about meeting the students' emotional and social needs through prolonged virtual learning. Some connections can't be replicated online, she said. Ensuring emotional support is a conversation among the group. And Riggs Cook says she's confident Terrio and her team will find a way to meet students' needs. The team has given Terrio autonomy in planning the high school program, but continues to approve decisions and consult with Charter Schools USA, their management company, to ensure all decisions meet state and federal requirements. Like Terrio, the board has continued to chug along during the pandemic, Riggs Cook said. The Charter Schools governance body meets virtually every month to review budget documents, approve school proposals, and consult with Charter Schools USA State Superintendent Lonnie Luce. They also receive weekly reports on the Phase 1 construction, she said. Riggs Cook says she's confident when the high school opens in the fall, it will exceed expectations. We will continue a superior level of education so our kids can continue to compete, contribute, or continue to become true leaders and add to the essence of life of people before them and who will come behind them, Riggs Cook said. And now we're at the a little over our halfway portion of our broadcast this morning. So let me read a couple of PSAs before we get to Day in History and the Day in History and our Zodiac or horoscope, as I like to refer to it as. As we have been reporting, free lunches will be served daily, starting at 11 a.m. at the Robicheaux Center located at 1919 Eras Landry Road. The Robicheaux Rec Center is open for to-go lunches. Only a limited number of lunches will be available for pickup for individuals who find themselves suddenly and at no fault of their own, unemployed or underemployed due to the COVID crisis. Lunches will be served again today, starting at 11 a.m. Lunches will be served from Walk-On Sports Bistro, compliments of Drew Brees and the Breeze Dream Foundation. These lunches are on a first-come, first-served basis. The Lafayette Fire Department will be helping to distribute meals, and Lafayette Police Department will be helping with traffic and security. Robicheaux Rec Center is located at 1919 Eras Landry Road. And individuals whose hours are being reduced at work or have been laid off from employment, they qualify for unemployment insurance benefits. If you're attempting to apply for unemployment insurance and are not able to access an existing online account or need help resetting your password, please call Lafayette's Acadiana Workforce Solutions at 337-262-5601. Due to high call volume, some calls may not be answered immediately, so please call again at a later time or contact one of Louisiana other local offices for assistance. In addition to unemployment insurance benefits, individuals looking for supplemental income can consider local employment opportunities with businesses who are seeking temporary, part-time, or full-time workers by visiting the COVID-19 Help Wanted Resources page at lafayette.org/Help Wanted, or Leaders virtual job fair page with local businesses seeking to hire local candidates for full-time employment opportunities at lafayette.org/ jobs. All right, folks, let's look and see what's happening in this day in history. Today is Monday, May 11th, the 132nd day of 2020. There are 234 days left in the year, 234 potential shopping days, I might add. Excuse me. Today's highlight in history on May 11th, 1502, Christopher Columbus left Cadiz, Spain on his fourth and final trip to the Western Hemisphere. Today's other highlights in history. On this date in 1858, Minnesota became the 32nd state of the Union. 1935, the Rural Electrification Administration was created as one of President Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal programs. In 1943, during World War II, U.S. forces landed on the Aleutian island of Attu, which was held by the Japanese. The Americans took the island 19 days later. In 1947, the B.F. Goodrich Company of Akron, Ohio, announced the development of a tubeless tire. In 1950, President Harry S. Truman formally dedicated the Grand Coulee Dam in Washington State. In 1953, a tornado devastated Waco, Texas, claiming 114 lives. In 1960, Israeli agents captured Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann in Buenos Aires, Argentina. 1973, the espionage trial of Daniel Ellsberg and Anthony Russo and the Pentagon Papers chase came to an end as Judge William M. Burns dismissed all charges, citing government misconduct. In 1981, legendary reggae artist Bob Marley, one of my faves, died in a Miami hospital due to cancer at age 36. In 1996, an Atlanta-bound Value Jet DC-9 caught fire shortly after takeoff on Miami. Excuse me, folks. And crashed into the Florida Everglades, killing all 110 people on board. In 1998, India set off 3 underground atomic blasts, its first nuclear test in 24 years. A French mint produced the first coins of Europe's single currency, the euro. In 2006, lawmakers demanded answers after a USA Today report that the National Security Agency was secretly collecting records of millions of ordinary American phone calls. President George W. Bush sought to assure Americans their civil liberties were being fiercely protected. 10 years ago, Conservative leader David Cameron, at age 43, became Britain's youngest prime minister in almost 200 years after Gordon Brown stepped down and ended 13 years of Labour government. 5 years ago, the NFL came down hard on its biggest star and its championship team, suspending Sugar Bowl MVP Tom Brady for the first 4 games of the season, finding the New England Patriots $1 million, taking away 2 draft picks as punishments for allegedly deflating footballs used in the AOC title game. 1 year ago, gay rights activists organizing on social media held an unauthorized march down 8 blocks of one of the main streets in Cuba's capital before being stopped by police. In today's birthday, comedian Mort Shaw is 93. Wow. Rock singer Eric Burden of the Animals in War is 79. Former White House Chief of Staff John F. Kelly is 70. Country musician Mark Herndon, formerly with Alabama, is 65. Actor Tim Blake Nelson, one of my favorite actors, is 56. Actor Kobe Bell is 45. And musician Howard Lawrence of the group Disclosure is 26. Thought for today: life is 10% what you make it and 90% how you take it. Irving Berlin, American songwriter born this date in 1888, died in 1989. Wow, at 101 years old. It's incredible. Zodiac. Taurus. Get rid of things you no longer need. Reevaluate the past to make improvements to the way you do things moving forward. Avoid manipulative people and protect your assets. Sorry, folks. Gemini, take the initiative and make positive improvements. Complaints and criticism won't solve anything, but constructive action will. Be the solution, not the problem, and you'll improve your life and relationships. Cancer, don't shy away from change. Be receptive to it and offer positive input that will help the process move along quickly. Events will turn in your favor. Leo, spend more time reinventing yourself. A new look, fitness routine, or healthier lifestyle will help you deter anyone who's trying to lead you down the wrong path. Virgos, my birthday, your perceptions will help you differentiate between what's right and what isn't. A change is in order that can help you determine how best to use your skills. Expand your horizons. Libra, stay away from home and stay away from people who overdo it or make empty promises. Go about your business, stick to a budget, and take care of your responsibilities. Rely on yourself. Scorpios, an offer will give you a way to maneuver through unpredictable times. Be creative, and you'll come up with exciting ways to use your time, experience, and attributes to your advantage. Sagittarius, you'll face a financial decision. Don't trust others. Take care of your affairs. Negotiate on your behalf and budget for the things that are necessary to reach your goal. Capricorn, emotions will surface. Channel your energy into something constructive to avoid an argument. Offer alternatives and, most of all, peace and harmony if you want positive change to take place. Aquarius, expect a delay. Don't get angry or you will slow things down even further if you're dealing with a bureaucratic matter. Review documents to make sure everything is in order. Pisces, humanitarian groups and causes will interest you. See how you can support a group you believe in and do your part. A personal decision will alter your future. Aries, finally Aries, simplify your life. Don't let trivial matters fluster you. Look at what you can accomplish and do the best job possible. Personal improvements are favored. Focus on fitness. And as always, the horoscope is an entertainment feature, not based on scientific fact. All right, folks. Going to check back with our news for this morning. Give me a second here. All right. The 2020 legislature budget. Conservatives make bid to restrain Louisiana spending by Tyler Bridges. At a time when the coronavirus pandemic has blown a giant hole in the state budget, conservative legislators see an opportunity to push through restrictions in government spending that has failed in the past. 4 measures approved Tuesday by the House Appropriations Committee would try to restrain state spending, which would inevitably mean less money for teacher pay, police protection, health care for the poor, and housing state inmates. That brings us back in line with responsible budgeting, said Representative Rick Edmonds, Republican of Baton Rouge, said this measure, which would limit the legislature to spending 98% of the available money recognized by a state panel known as a Revenue Estimating Conference. The REC holds an all-important meeting Monday, today, to determine how much money the state is expecting to collect this year with the economic collapse causing tax revenues to plummet. Jay Dardenne, a former Republican lawmaker, is the architect of Governor John Bel Edwards' budgets as Commissioner of Administration and is the governor's representative on the 4-member REC. In an interview on Friday, Dardenne said, "Now is not a good time to impose limits on spending. There's a lot of uncertainty going forward and how quick this pandemic is going to resolve itself," he said. Jan Moeller, director of the Louisiana Budget Project, was more blunt in his comments about Edmonds' proposals. "It's a given that's a bad idea in the best of times and even idea in the worst of times, Mueller said. Going back decades, lawmakers and governors in Louisiana have adopted numerous measures that aim to limit spending. Perhaps the most important one was created by the REC by then Governor Edwin Edwards during his third term in the late 1980s. Before its introduction, governors, including Edwards, would simply boost the estimated price of oil in the upcoming year or accelerate the projected growth of the economy. That would give them more money to spend. The REC has stopped the practices by effectively imposing a cap on how much lawmakers can appropriate. Now that amount is based on how much revenue the REC determines will be available based on calculations by chief economists for the legislature and the governor's office. The REC has not been a fail-safe during Governor Bobby Jindal's second term. Then House Speaker Chuck Clinkley, a Republican from Lake Charles, then Senate President John Alario, Republican West Wego, and Jindal's Commissioner of Administration repeatedly overestimated how much money the government would collect. The optimistic projections helped offset Jindal's refusal to raise taxes for all the services demanded by the public. By mid-year, when it became clear that spending was exceeding revenue, Jindal had to impose unpopular budget cuts. Near the end of Jindal's tenure, a group of legislators, known as the fiscal hawks, pushed through restrictions on how governors could use one-time money, dollars available for only 1 year, to pay for annual expenses and paper over a looming budget deficit. Jindal's prolific use of one-time money contributed to the $2 billion budget deficit he bequeathed to John Bel Edwards. In the 1990s, the legislature and state voters also imposed a constitutional gap on how much the legislature could appropriate each year based on the growth in state personal income. State Representative Bo Billio, Republican from New Iberia, won the Appropriations Committee's approval Tuesday of 3 measures that would lower the expenditure limit. It was a first step in winning overall legislative approval. And an analysis by Greg Albrecht, the legislature's chief economist, shows the legislature actually appropriated $537 million less than the expenditure limit last year when it approved a budget that contained $13.3 billion in state government revenue. One of Billio's bills, House Concurrent Resolution 8, would lower the expenditure limit for the fiscal year that begins in mid-2021 of $1.5 billion or 7%. Another measure by Billio, House Bill 464, would ask voters in November whether they want to recalculate how the expenditure limit in the Constitution is determined in ways that would likely constrain spending. I like to make sure we are constantly reminding ourselves to live within our means, said Billio, who also believes taxes are too high. Under the recalculated formula, the new expenditure limit would be based on population growth, the regional rise in the Consumer Price Index, the national GDP, and the increase in state personal income. Jim Richardson, an LSU economist who served on the REC until last year, said Louisiana's flat population alone would restrict the growth in the expenditure limit. The legislature could bust it with a difficult-to-get 2/3 vote. The Pelican Institute for Public Policy, a New Orleans-based company that favors lower taxes and less spending, helped Billio develop his proposals. We've been writing about these kinds of budgetary structural reforms for a while, said Daniel Espammer, the group's CEO. Edmonds proposed a 98% spending limit last year. It passed the House but died after Alario delivered the bill to an untimely or an unfriendly Senate committee. Alario has now been term limited out of the Senate, and his successor, State Senator Paige Cortez, Republican from Lafayette, is more conservative. If adopted this year, Edmonds' House Bill 118 would force the state to spend at least $206 million less in 2022 than it planned to spend in 2021. This is not just a response to COVID, Edmonds said. This is a philosophical approach with how we start a budget. He noted that the legislature can vote to spend all the money available not just 98% of it, with at least 53 votes in the 105-member House and 20 in the 39-member Senate. Your hands are not tied, said State Representative Tony Bakula, Republican out of Prairieville, a supporter of HB 118. Darden said that without this type of control, Edwards and the legislature not only eliminated the gender-era deficits, principally by increasing the sales state tax and also by cutting government spending, but also produced budget surpluses during the past 2 years. The latest surplus will lessen the size of the upcoming cuts caused by the pandemic. Darden and Molière also said the legislature could simply choose to spend less than all of the available money within a few laws that requires them to do so. But doing that would mean voting to cut programs popular with their constituents. Molière sees the amendment's legislation as a cop-out that will allow lawmakers to say the law ties their hands. If the legislature wants to limit spending below the forecast, they should explain what they want to cut and come up with 53 votes get to do that. Mueller said, referring to the number of votes needed to pass the budget in the House. Okay, moving on. In the police blotter, man killed, children injured in shooting. A man died Saturday night as a result of a shooting on Silver Street in Liberia. Police told KATC TV. Police were called to the 400 block of Silver Street about 11:30 p.m. Saturday, a spokesman said. The victim was taken to a hospital where he later died. 2 children who lived near the shooting took place were also injured by the stray bullets that went into their home, a police spokesperson said. Family members took their children to a hospital for a treatment of injuries that were not considered life-threatening, police said. The children are 6 and 13. Family members told the TV station, and both have since been released from the hospital. New Iberia police continue to investigate the shooting. Police probe second shooting at house. Eunice police late Saturday responded to a second shooting-related call within a week at the same house on Town Home Drive. Police said Dustin Goldmouth Johnson was arrested the previous weekend in a May 3rd shooting at the house. No one was injured in that incident. About 11 p.m. Saturday, police were again investigating a shooting at the same time. The house has been the target of shootings going back to last year. The subject of a search warrant resulting in an arrest and the scene of various other activities, Police Chief Randy Fontenot said. Family members took Demetrius Robinson, 27, and Town Home Drive to a hospital for treatment following the shooting. A second suspect, Brandon Numnes, 21, of Ann Street and Eunice, was found by officers a couple of hours into the investigation. He had been shot and was hiding in a wooded area a short distance from the scene. Robinson remained hospitalized Sunday morning. Nubius was released from the hospital and was being held in the Eunice City Jail. Okay, so it's about 9:53. Just have a couple more stories I'd like to read this morning. So I'm going to continue beyond our normal 55-minute broadcast. At 9:55, the audio over our TV stations will end. And if you want to continue hearing the broadcast this morning, you can tune in to our YouTube station, which is AOC Community Media YouTube channel, or you can listen online to our Cypress Street Radio streaming online radio station. That's Cypress, CYPRESS, Street Radio. Just click the play button and you will hear my melodious voice. So continuing with the news, Bessie battles for consensus in search. 6 finalists in running for Louisiana schools chief by Will Centel. After a 4-month hunt amid a coronavirus pandemic, Louisiana's top school board is posed to name a new state superintendent of education. 6 finalists are in the mix. 2 educators who represent different wings of the public schools debate remain favorites for the job, set to be filled on May 20th. They are Assistant State Superintendent of Education Jessica Bagyan, seen as the favorite of the school overhaul advocates, and Jefferson Parish School Superintendent Cade Broomley, believed to be the choice of fellow superintendents, school board members, and teachers' unions. The question is whether Bagyan or Broomley can win the minimum 8 votes needed for the job from the 11-member State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, or BESE, or whether a compromise candidate emerges. Those who will make the call are saying little in public. BESE members are keeping it very close to the vest, said Bridget Neeland, Government Affairs Director for the advocacy group Stand for Children. None of the candidates have locked up the job. We do not have 8 votes for any of the top candidates, said Sandy Holloway, president of BESE. BESE member Kira Orange Jones, who leads the work group that has led the search, said it is unclear whether a consensus is developing. The truth is, I don't know, Jones said. It's very hard to say. I think board members are certainly deliberating. One of the other contenders, former St. James Parish School Superintendent Lonnie Luce, is mentioned as a dark horse candidate. Luce, 51, also led the state's first online charter school, which means he has experience in both the traditional and new public school campus. The other finalists are Heather Poole, 46, Executive Vice Chancellor at Central Louisiana Technical Community College in Alexandria; Joe Sadecki, 44, Associate Commissioner for Public System Support, Innovation and Charters, and Texas Education Agency; and Paul Valas, 66, a former superintendent of the Recovery School District. Holloway and others hope to agree on a superintendent on May 20th, so he or she can be confirmed by the State Senate Committee before adjournment on June 1st. At stake is one of the most powerful jobs in state government and the leader of roughly 720,000 public school students. The superintendent carries out BESE policies, but the post also carries a huge influence in shaping student testing, teacher training, and evaluations, whether charter schools flourish or flounder, school ratings, the role of vouchers, and the direction of public schools after 2 decades of sweeping changes. All 8 of BESE's elected members were backed by business groups, which would seem to favor back-in 35, because business has generally backed the push to overall public schools since 2000. But 4 members are new to the panel, and Governor John Bel Edwards' 3 appointees are expected to back Broomley, 39, or another contender seen as sympathetic to traditional public school groups. The hunt for former Superintendent John White's successor, the first of its kind in decades, began in January when Holloway named a 4-person working group to lead the way. Our previous plan was one-on-ones or coffee times with the candidates, Holloway said. That didn't happen. The original hiring date was April 20th through the 21st, but that meeting was postponed by the coronavirus. Plans to trim the list of finalists to 2 or 3, followed by face-to-face interviews, were also scrapped amid the fallout from the virus. The coronavirus pandemic that closed classrooms 9 weeks ahead of schedule forced BESE to conduct virtual interviews of roughly 100 minutes each with the 6 finalists, a list paired from an initial field of nearly 2 dozen. Since then, BESE members have been engaging in one-on-one phone calls with the candidates, either independently or with the help of the state's search firm. Jim Garvey, the Metairie attorney and the longest-serving member of BESE, said he has chatted with all 6 finalists. I think as of today, it is still fairly wide open, Garvey said, adding that he thinks a consensus will emerge pretty quickly after all the background checks, review of public surveys, and the other steps are done. The attempt will go from 6 to 1, which is fairly ambitious, but not impossible, he said. Holloway said he has 2 leaders. She did not identify them, but is still doing research. BESE's inability to agree on a superintendent is nothing new. Watt spent the last 4 years of the 8-year tenure working on a month-to-month contract because BESE lacked the votes to extend his contract to replace him. In 2011, then Governor Bobby Jindal took the unusual step of campaigning for BESE candidates statewide to get the critical votes needed for White's hiring. Leaders of the Louisiana Association of School Superintendents and the Louisiana School Boards Association, whose members are generally believed to back Brumley, have encouraged the rank and file to fill out Bessie surveys on the job and to make their views known. Brumley's name has been mentioned more than the other 5 in the surveys. Meanwhile, the Louisiana Association of Public Charter Schools, which has not endorsed a candidate, took exception to Brumley's comments that he favors charter schools authorized by local school boards over those endorsed by Bessie. Advocates of charter schools, which are public schools run by non-governmental boards, view Bessie-approved charters as vital lifeline to counter local resistance to competing school models. The group sent a clip of Brumley's comments to members and a letter to Bessie members that said picking a leader who does not embrace state-authorized charter schools would be deeply concerning. Carolyn Romer, executive director of the group, said Brumley's comments appear to confirm the view that district superintendents believe the best charter is the local charter. Romer added, "But I did not tell my membership not to support him." In another story related to coronavirus, I'll wear a mask until the end of the year. For Black New Orleanians gathered for Mother's Day traditions, there's little appetite for reopening the economy, by Katie Reckdow. Donald Bertrand's baby blue mask stayed in place even as he hosted big bags of white rocks and a can of white paint into his wheelbarrow. The mask was still in place and in position as he rolled the wheelbarrow along the uneven terrain of Carrollton Cemetery, number 1, headed to his mother's grave. Even if state and city stay-at-home orders are relaxed in the coming weeks, Bertrand, 57, will continue to wear his mask. "I'll wear a mask until the end of the year," he said, as he and a few dozen others worked to clean their family's plots, a Mother's Day tradition here at what's commonly called the Green Street Cemetery. Though the graveyard has rows of grand above-ground tombs near Adams Street, a non-stop stream of people carried shovels, rakes, pots of flowers, and bouquets of balloons between the ground-level plots on the low-lying street side of the graveyard. During the days of de jure segregation, Black families were allowed to buy plots only on the side of the graveyard, and this year, because of disproportionate total that the coronavirus has exacted on the city's Black community, that side of the graveyard is the section dotted with new graves, piled high with fresh dirt and sprays of wilted flowers. Death feels a little too close this year, even for families who seek out cemeteries several times a year on birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, and All Saints' Day. "Looks like the virus is about to wipe us all out," said Ronisha Stokes, 28, as she and her little sister, Skylar Stokes, 21, pulled weeds and swept oak leaves away before placing flowers near the white wooden marker on the final resting place for their mother, Rhonda Stokes, who died suddenly of a brain aneurysm in early 2005. All but one of those interviewed at the cemetery on Sunday thought that reopening portions of the city and the state economy, which could begin as soon as Friday, would be premature. "It's way too soon," Bernard said. Stokes agreed. "I know that people are bored and ready to get back to work, but this is our lives we're talking about. The virus has already taken a paternal aunt of theirs. Family believes she's likely contracted it from the children with whom she worked." Their aunt, Keisha Stokes, 46, walked into the gate and up to the small white cross to pay homage to her sister. For her, too, the virus has come too close. The mother of a close friend has been on a ventilator. Her doctors now believe her organs have failed. "And I really believe that if the city reopens too soon, the numbers will spike again," she said. Citing a news report, she heard that Georgia's cases have begun to rise since the state began a phased reopening April 24th. New Orleans Health Department Director Dr. Jennifer Avegno has said as the expiration of the mayor's stay-at-home order approaches, the health department is monitoring a number of factors, including a continuing decline in new reported cases and the ability to test 4% to 5% of its population each month, or roughly 500 to 600 people each day. Mayor Latoya Cantrell and other city officials are still trying to determine how to be sure that those who contract COVID-19 can be isolated and all of their contacts traced to stem further spread. Once the criteria is met, the city will begin a phased reopening. But if the number of new cases or deaths rise, restrictions would be reimposed. Similarly, Governor John Bel Edwards is expected to announce his decision on Monday on whether Louisiana has met its benchmarks to let the statewide order expire Friday. Oyster overload. Most of Louisiana farmers have no place to sell their crop, by Sarah Sneath. Natalie Gerda's family owns Casamentos, the uptown restaurant famous for its oysters and tile decor. The restaurant switched to takeout when the coronavirus stay-at-home order began in mid-March, but it has seen a 75% drop in businesses, Gerda said. We'll just try to get by, she said. Some days are a struggle. Few people are ordering raw or char-grilled oysters these days, and those who do are mostly regulars, Gerda said. I'm sure that a lot of people would prefer to eat them here and have that experience, she said. More than almost any other food, oysters tend to be consumed in restaurants. And that means oyster farmers are struggling mightily to keep their businesses afloat while restaurants are closed or running at limited capacity. The pandemic is just the latest blow inflicted on an industry already reeling from environmental disasters. Most Louisiana oyster farmers lease areas of the seafloor from the state. The farmers plant clutch, a hard material for oyster larvae to latch onto, and harvest the oysters when they mature. The crop is sold to predecessors who sell to distributors who sell to restaurants. When the restaurant industry screeched to a halt, processors froze the product they had on hand with freezers full of oysters they stopped buying. This left most Louisiana oyster farmers without a place to sell their crop, said Mitch Jurish, chairman of the Louisiana Oyster Task Force. We really have to work, he said. Demand is down like 99%. On a normal year, about 5,000 sacks will be sold at the dock in Empire each week, Jurish said. But only about 500 sacks per week are being sold there now. Like most Louisiana oyster farmers, Boris Guerrero doesn't dredge up oysters from the seafloor. He's a manager at Grand Isle Sea Farms, which sells specialty oysters grown in floating cages. The company is also unusual in that it sells directly to restaurants. With an already established presence online, Grand Isle Sea Farms was able to transition to selling oysters directly to consumers. Customers are more willing now to try shucking at home and are eager to share pictures of themselves doing so, Guerrero said. Still, direct sales are not made up for the sales the company has lost from restaurants, and it's time-intensive to deliver oysters in small quantities, Guerrero said. Differences is how Guerrero does business also hasn't protected his company from the environmental issues that have plagued oyster farmers across Louisiana. While the Gulf Coast produces more oysters than anywhere else in the U.S., production was down between 50% and 85% from historic levels even before the pandemic, according to a 2018 report by the Nature Conservancy. The Deepwater Horizon oil spill alone wiped out between 4 and 8.3 billion adult subtidal oysters in the Gulf of Mexico. In 2018, Louisiana was the Gulf state that producing as many oysters as before the oil spill. But recent flooding in the Mississippi River Basin dented the progress. Last year, immense rainfall from the Midwest flowed down the Mississippi River through the Bonnet-Carré Spillway and other canals and channels and into Louisiana bays. The spillway diverts water away from New Orleans when the river is high. Last year, the structure was opened twice in 1 year for the first time and released a record volume of river water. Flooding on the Pearl River further added to the onslaught of fresh water. Too much fresh water kills oysters, which cannot swim away like fish. Data from the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries shows that last winter's commercial harvest on private leases in the state dropped below 30% of the previous year's harvest. Last year was pretty terrible for us, Guerrero said. Guerrero knows it's bad when the sack of oysters he pulls out of the floating cages sound hollow. It's just empty shells, he said. Guerrero is starting to see the telltale signs of oyster die-offs again this year. Spillway was opened last month, marking the sixth time the structure has been open in the past decade. The increasing frequency of spillway openings has been attributed to a climate change-driven increase in rainfall in the Midwest. The $2 trillion coronavirus stimulus package signed by President Donald Trump included $300 million to mitigate economic hardships faced by the fishing industry as a result of the pandemic. Louisiana fisheries were allocated $14.7 million out of the $300 million available. U.S. Representative Garrett Graves said the allocation was disproportionate to the value and size of Louisiana's fishery. How is it possible for Louisiana, one of the top fishing states in the nation, to only receive this much while other states with a fraction of the fishing industry get more money? He said in a news release, "This is a slap in the face." Gray said he has reached out to the House Natural Resources Committee to request an investigation into the amount states were allocated for fisheries. South Louisiana and the fishing communities are still hurting from the 2019 opening of the Bonnet Carré spillway and face competition with the falsely labeled crawfish from overseas and imported shrimp taking precedent in the market over our domestic and sustainable seafood products, he said. The added pandemic has caused irreparable harm on our people. I look forward to digging deeper into this and finding out why Louisiana got the short end yet again. State Senator Sharon Hewitt introduced a resolution to the Senate Thursday that empowers the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority to work with the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries to develop a plan to help the oyster industry recover. Oyster farmers have criticized the state's plan to rebuild the coast by using controlled openings in the Mississippi River to feed dying wetlands with a fresh supply of sand and dirt carried by the water. They see the impacts of the spillway as evidence of what is to come with a controlled opening called sediment diversions. Federal permitting for coastal restoration projects requires that the state evaluate the impact of fisheries, including the oyster industry. Hewitt's resolution includes a study of the impacts as well as the development of ideas to address those impacts. We don't want to rebuild the coast at the expense of the oysters, she said. And finally, in today's news, ideas to reduce coronavirus risk in your home by Rick Bogren, LSU Ag Center. Most people know the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines to avoid the spread of the coronavirus in public. But what about within our homes? People can do several things in addition to cleaning and high-touch services to help prevent the spread of the coronavirus or any infectious disease among family members who live together, said LSU Ag Center housing specialist Claudette Rigel. Because COVID-19 is thought to spread mainly through respiratory droplets from someone who is infected, staying home curbs the spread. Staying home also made it extra important that our homes are a healthy place to spend so much time, said Rochelle. In addition, we are still learning how the virus spreads, including the potential for it to be aerialized, which means it may linger and circulate in the air inside homes and buildings, she said. Maintaining good indoor quality in our homes is always important to prevent health hazards and to optimize the body's immune system, Rochelle said, along with other healthy living practices like good nutrition, sleep, and exercise. Here are some extra measures you can take in your home when no one is ill. Increase ventilation of fresh air into your home to dilute airborne germs and pollutants. Upgrade to a MERV 13 or MERV 13 rated air filter in the heating cooling system. That efficiency level can capture virus carrying sneeze droplets. Higher ratings are more efficient, but more overly restrict the airflow and cause problems. So consult an HVAC professional if you want to upgrade further. Prevent low relative humidity below 30%, which can make people more susceptible to respiratory infection. This is rarely an issue in warm, humid Louisiana climate, but it can happen during cold winter weather when the heating system is running. As an added precaution, close the toilet lid before flushing to reduce exposure to any germs released in the air by the turbulence, and run the bathroom exhaust fan during and for a few minutes after flushing. When someone in the household is sick or quarantined, isolate the affected person in one room. Exhaust air from that room to the outdoors to keep the isolation room's air from circulating to other parts of the house. This can be done with a small window fan on low speed, blowing to the outside. After sharing a bathroom, if that's not possible, run an exhaust fan continuously. Also follow CDC cleaning and disinfecting guidelines available online at BIT or online. You can go to the CDC and they'll give you all the information. Note that disinfectants are more effective if you first clean up as a separate step. More information is available online at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Close off or cover the central air vents in the isolation room if there is another way to control temperature. Provide a window air conditioner or a room space heater for the room as needed for comfort and mild weather open windows. Use a room air cleaner in the isolation room before you buy one. Consult the online EPA guide to air cleaners in the home. When no one is ill, but the household includes a person at high risk, seek current CDC categories or consult with a health care professional. Inside, isolate the high-risk person in a separate room and bathroom if possible. Keep the door closed. This is to protect the at-risk person in case another household member has the virus without symptoms. Use a window fan to ventilate the room with outdoor air blowing from outside inside. Close or cover the central air vents into the room and provide a room air conditioner or space heater as needed. Use a room air cleaner in the isolation room. Healthy indoor air quality tips for all homes include pollutant source control is at the top of the list. Never allow smoking indoors. Don't burn candles and always use the range hood when cooking. Buy and use only low VOC, that's volatile organic compounds cleaners, and household products. You can read the labels to find out for sure. Avoid overuse of disinfectants such as bleach, which produce unhealthy fumes. Do not rely on air filters or air cleaners as a substitute for pollutant source control. Try to remain 40 to 60% indoor relative humidity for optimal health and comfort. Make sure all drain traps have water in them to prevent sewer gas in the home. Clean and capture dust with an HEP or HEPA filter vacuum cleaner or damp wipe methods. Clean high-touch surfaces often, especially door handles, light switches, and countertops. If the home was built before 1978, assume it could have a lead-based paint and asbestos-containing materials. Home repair and renovation projects that disturb paint or asbestos materials can create a serious hazard. Hire only EPA lead-safe renovators to do work on the home. Learn more at epa.gov. While choosing new door, cabinet, and faucet handles, consider brass. Uncoated copper and its alloys, as well as silver, can have antimicrobial effects. Although more research is needed, a recent study by the National Institute of Health and CDC reported that the SARS-CoV-2 virus, which causes COVID-19, remained viable for up to 2 to 3 days on plastic and stainless steel surface versus up to 4 hours on copper. Those extra measures to reduce COVID-19 are based largely on recommendations by Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory indoor air quality scientists. For more science-based information and resources on how to create a healthy, energy-efficient, and resilient home, visit the LA House of the La House Resource Center online at lsuaccenter.com/LAHOUSE capital HOUSE, and at YouTube and Facebook. Well, that about wraps it up, folks. Thank you so much if you continue to tune in this morning and listen to the news. I greatly appreciate it. I know I ran over quite a bit of time today, but there was a lot of information, especially that last article I read about things to keep in mind during this pandemic in the home. We all know about going out and being around groups and stuff, but we need to take care of things at our home level as well. So please stay healthy, safe, and above all, content and happy with the situation. That's hard to do. Going into the amount of time we've been quarantined, we'll find out by the end of, hopefully today, we'll find out if May 15th is our starts, or May 16th starts the phase one of our reopening of our economy and our state. We'll find out hopefully today what's going on when Governor Bill Edwards has his Monday news conference. So we'll just, whatever he decides, whatever the administration decides, we shall keep pushing forward. So stay safe, stay healthy, as I said. Thank you for tuning in. If you'd like to do what I've been doing this morning, you can do it at your home. If you have a computer, you can get set up. Just go to aocinc.org to fill out an application to become a newspaper volunteer reader, and we'll do the rest. We'll set you up and make sure that you got all the information you need to do. It's fun to do, and I really appreciate you tuning in this morning. So please have a great rest of the day and the week. This has been Bruce, and one last thing, be kind to each other. Have a good day.